Welcome back to Bringing Back the Block, and today we are here at the Carter Payne with Jeff Zearfoss. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how are you? Having us. Of course, thanks for coming out.
All right, let's dive right into it. Okay. Tell me about you and how this all came to be.
Oh gosh. I went to school for engineering, but I couldn't find an internship in engineering that sounded cool enough for me to give up my job at the hotel where I was working. And I love hospitality. I get paid to make people happy. And so I just feel like the food and beverage world was always kind of my destiny.
You were driven to it.
Yeah, and I love it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's so huge. Okay, are you from here, born and raised?
Grew up in Pennsylvania. Came out to Colorado when I was in middle school on family vacation, and fell in love, and always knew that this is where I was supposed to be. So I looked at college out here, and the logistics of college half a country away didn't make sense. But when I was graduating from college, I was like, all right, Colorado, here I come. And so I moved here to Colorado Springs. I took a job with one of the big resorts here in town and ran restaurants for them for close to a decade before I kind of set out on my own. But when I was looking at jobs when I was first moving out here, I really wanted to work for kind of an independent place. Because if you work for a chain, every time they go to promote you, they relocate you, and I don't want to relocate, right? I want to get to know a community and build relationships and be a part of the fabric of the society. And I fell in love with Colorado Springs, and took a couple promotions at that job. Eventually, ended up leaving that company and set out on my own. But knew that this was the place where I wanted to live my life and build a business and be.
You can definitely tell that you're super passionate about this, so that's awesome. So what the viewers don't really know is that Jeff and I met through volunteer work, and so part of Bringing Back the Block is we like to focus on community businesses that give back to the communities that they're located in. And a little birdie told me that you were a volunteer of the year for Catholic Charities.
I was, and if you would have told me you were going to bring it up, I would be like, don't mention it. It's just, I just volunteer. But yeah, you're right. We met volunteering at the Marian House. I've run their kitchen every Wednesday as a volunteer, give or take, for almost 20 years, as long as I've been here in town. So giving back to the community has always been important to me. I grew up in the church, grew up in the scouting program. I'm not particularly close to either of those right now, but still, this is a small planet, and we all have to share it, and we should all work to take good care of each other. And so that's really important to me, both through my work at the Marian House, but also in our business here. So we're classified as a social enterprise. So we're licensed as an LLC and registered as an LLC. But for us, it's not about how do we make as much money as possible. It's about how do we remain, financially viable and financially sustainable, because that's important. But also, how do we take the best care of our staff that we can? How do we take the best care of the environment that we can? How do we support the local art community? How do we support the local, our supply chain, right? It's not about, we're not entering a negotiation saying, how can we win the most at your expense? We're saying, how can not just we come to a mutual agreement where we win and you win, but also that the environment wins and the community wins and everybody else wins too, right? All those sort of stakeholders that aren't afforded a seat at the table, we care about their outcomes as well.
That's so huge. And that, from a business standpoint, a lot of times you just see everybody worrying about that bottom dollar. So that's definitely a breath of fresh air. And I absolutely love that approach. So thank you for sharing that. Let's kind of switch to the business. Let's start off with where you're located and this amazing building that we're in right now.
Yeah, so all of you watching will get to see, we're sitting in the cellar right now. This is our event space. Because acoustically it's a little bit better for this sort of conversation. But yeah, so this building is the historic Carter Payne Chapel. It's 125 years old. It was the first African-American church in Colorado Springs.
I didn't know that.
It was. It was one of the Palmer Land Grant churches. It was, the original congregation outgrew the space in 1986 and listed it for sale. And it wasn't really open to the public in any meaningful way until we opened here. And so who are we, right? So we are the Carter Payne. We kept the name of the building because far be it from us to change the
There's
name
so
on
much
a historic
history
building.
there, right?
Absolutely. So we have kind of 3 bars all sharing one restaurant roof. So our restaurant, our food portion is run by Chef Brent Beavers. He's my business partner. He and I do this together. If you've been in town for a long time, you'll recall the restaurant Sencha.
Okay.
This is, that was Brent's first restaurant. This is his newest venture. And he's actually just about to celebrate his 5th anniversary here in this space, which we're super excited for. So his kitchen operation is kind of, I don't know, it defies modern terminology a little bit. It's kind of farm-to-table restaurant meets contemporary Colorado, meets modern American cuisine, meets kind of fine dining without the formality.
Yeah.
You know, he's talks a lot that good food doesn't have to be fancy food, because oftentimes fancy food isn't always good. And you shouldn't have to get dressed up if you want to have a nice meal, right? You should be able to come out as you are.
Food shouldn't be pretentious. It should be fun, enjoyable. It should be an experience, but it doesn't have to be all pomp and circumstance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the food piece. And then we have 3 bars that all share kind of one restaurant roof. So Local Relic is our brewery. Cheers, by the way, to getting to drink beer on an afternoon.
That's one way to work.
Right.
Hey.
So Local Relic is our brewery. We brew 200 different beers a year. Super small batch, super seasonal. We're at more than 1,400 unique beers to date.
Oh my God.
And if brewing is sort of the confluence of art and engineering, most brewers are engineers, if not by trade or training, at least by philosophy. You know, it's about consistency and repeatability and predictability and efficiency. And for us, it's about none of those things. This is art in a glass. If you're a painter and your first 5 paintings are great, and your 6th painting is the Mona Lisa, and somebody comes to you and says, I need you to paint an exact replica of that every single day, you would say no, right? Yeah, like you would want to paint something new.
I want that
tomorrow.
feeling. I want that emotion.
Right.
I want the experience.
Yeah. That's what this is.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We have a cool wine bar upstairs as well called Crusade. They have 80 different wines by the glass on wine flights.
Oh, that's awesome.
Fun, curated, esoteric. The goal of Crusade, and Julie, our sommelier who runs that, is to help you discover new wines that you've never had before. So grapes you don't know, regions you haven't had wine from. If you walk up and say, hey, I'm usually a Chardonnay drinker, she'll pour you something Chardonnay adjacent to help you kind of expand your palate. And then our 3rd bar in that space is called Araucana. They do super seasonal, intentional, similar to the beer kind of cocktails as art. So we're not making the spirits, but nearly everything else in-house that they use is stuff that they produce. And it's really, you know, seasonal, intentional, curated, kind of modern takes on a lot of classics. An absolutely exceptional cocktail program.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. And it's so exciting. Okay, let's kind of take a step back, because you were telling me a minute ago before we started filming about this awesome story about how you came to be in this building. Would you mind sharing that for us?
Sure, yeah, I'll give you the quick version. Otherwise, you'll run out of tape, I think. So we bought this building. There was a couple, their names, they still spend some time in town. They split their time between here and Texas. Their names are Mike Cookson and Lynn Schlemeyer. And we would not be here today if not for their support. We approached them and said, hey, this building is sitting vacant. It's, you know, not being utilized for its purpose, which is a community gathering spot, right? You know, a place to come out and meet your neighbors and make friends and hear the news of the day and tell stories and spend time together as humans, right? Because that's what this building, you know, as a church, that's what it was for 125 years. It should still be about that. And so we approached them. They say, well, you know, we would consider selling it, but it's really important to us to know what it is that you're intending to do, right? We really want to sell this to somebody who has the right philosophy, the right intention, because they really believed strongly that it should be a place that was about community. And so when we approached them, they said, okay, well, I mean, yeah, we'd consider it, but like, it doesn't matter how big your pile of dollars are, what is it that you imagine this space being? And so when we talked about a brewery that is intentionally sourcing ingredients and, you know, with a focus on local and seasonal and a culinary program that is doing a lot of job training and working with individuals. We've worked with individuals transitioning out of homelessness and domestic abuse. We've done a lot of job training with individuals post-incarceration. We're doing work with individuals with kind of mental health challenges, right? Looking at, kind of community re-engagement on that front. We talked about that. We talked about, this gorgeous event space down here for family gatherings, corporate gatherings, holiday parties, but also nonprofit fundraisers and theater groups. And we've shown a documentary premiere and all sorts of those sorts of cool things. We talked to them about having a big shared patio where we can feature live music, but not the sort of live music like you find at a lot of the cooler, bigger, amazing venues around town that we love going to, all of you love going to, right? But we want to have a smaller stage for the people who, and for the people who aren't big enough to get booked at some of those other bigger venues. How do you go from 0 to 100? We want to be a place that can, help you kind of grow into that, right? And so we talked to Mike and Lynn about this over, what ended up being a 4-hour lunch. And we just got to be great friends kind of through the whole process. But they really believed in our vision and what we wanted to see.
And you guys are still really closely connected even today. So
absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, anytime they come back in town, I love them both dearly, and they just stand at that front entrance and just cry because they're just so proud of us and what we've been able to accomplish.
Well, that must speak volumes to you, because when you had that lunch, it was just a vision. And it was a conversation at that point. Sorry, I'm a big crybaby. Andrew knows this already. But to see it come to fruition and to have them come and be in awe of what you've accomplished every time that they come back, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Well, and it speaks, I think, to our intention around community too, right? The fact that, and that's what drives me, right?
Yes.
If you talk to Andy and Bob upstairs who, oversee the beer bar, you talk to Julie behind the wine bar, you talk to Hunter and Ethan and Sarah behind the cocktail bar, and talk to Brent, my partner, and Marcus about the kitchen, they would tell you that the space is about the beer and the wine and the cocktails and the food. And they're right. It is about all those things, but for me, it's about so much more. We don't need more places to scream at each other in all caps, right? We have those places in the world. What we need are places be human together and sit here across the table, share a drink, share a conversation, and discover that however the world and the powers that be in the media and whoever else are trying to convince us how different we are than each other, at the end of the day, we're all human, and we all
Bones,
I said this before,
flesh.
right? This is a small planet, and we all have to take care of each other, and we can't do that if we hate each other, right? And the way to realize that we really don't hate each other is to come and share food and share drink and share conversation. And that's what this space is for me. And so many of our regulars and so many of our patrons really embrace that too, right? It's not just a restaurant. It's not just a bar. It's an experience. It's, lots of coffee shops and restaurants and art galleries and all of those places have so much of the same philosophy that we do and really work to get to this sort of idea of being your third space, right? You have your home, you have your work, and then where's that other spot that you go to feel comfortable? And we are not that for everybody, and that's okay, but we are that for a lot of people, and we take the commitment not just to that, but to honoring the history and the legacy of this space and of this building as that. We live that every day.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, I love hearing that. It makes me so excited. Part of the reason I wanted to do Bringing Back the Block, just so you know, is I grew up in Hawaii, and there's really a tight-knit feel that I kind of lost moving here to Colorado. And it was where your neighbors are considered family, and I just really want to bring that back. And that's part of the reason I got into real estate, helping people find their community.
Yeah.
So seeing your passion and everything is beautiful and amazing, and I'm absolutely in awe of what you're accomplishing here.
Well, thank you. I will say we have a lot of fun doing it too.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, I apologize. This just won't stop. You also host events like you had mentioned the summertime, Wednesday nights. You have cornhole tournaments here right now. Yeah. Are there any other events that you typically do?
Oh gosh, we have so many things. Yeah, so we're hosting cornhole. The summer season, I think, is still you can still get spots in that. We'll have a fall season as well. We do a series of kind of community like paired beverage dinners. So we have our next one is a 7-course paired beverage dinner put on by our sous chef Marcus. He is Mexican by heritage and has spent a lot of time down in Mexico, especially recently, and is really doing kind of an intentional, like not Tex-Mex, not Mexican restaurant, but like true higher end, like upscale Mexico City dining experience over 7 courses.
I don't think we really have anything here that fits that mold really in Springs, do we?
I mean, not precisely, but here's the thing, like it's one dinner that we're doing, and the next one that we do after that, the next one we're doing, it'll be in July, we're calling Fire and Wine. All of the only heat that will be applied to any of the food as far as like a cooking process goes will be fire. Right, we're not using gas stoves. I guess gas stoves are kind of fire, but like wood and charcoal and smokers.
Yes.
Right, we're not using modern appliances. Right, it'll be all
not electronically modulated by.
Yeah, no gas stoves, no electricity, no ovens, no steamers.
Oh, that's exciting! I think I need to.
Yeah, so that one will be really fun. Anyway, so we're doing this series of dinners, and I really love their kind of ticketed events. So you don't call and make a reservation for 2 and come in and have dinner that night. You buy tickets to this event. It's kind of all communal style seating, and so you come in, and you kind of like shake the hands of people next to you, and by the end of 7 courses of food and drinks, you're like hugging and trading numbers, and your family.
Yes.
And so, so those are super fun. We're also doing, we do Sunday school, because if you have a bar in an old church, how can you not do Sunday school?
Yes, it
right?
just makes sense.
And so right now we're doing a series of wine classes, because wine should not be the sport of rich old white dudes. Wine, and so much of the rest of the world is really good about this, right? Wine is just what you drink. It's just what you have with dinner or with lunch or whatever. It's just, when we talk in wine class, it's just grape juice, right? Like that's all these are, right? It's pressed grapes and yeast and
let it sit.
Maybe a barrel, right? Maybe not a barrel, and time and love if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
And that's all. Like wine doesn't have to be snooty or pretentious. It should be like fun and approachable and interesting. And so we have a series of wine classes. It's kind of always rotating, kind of what the subjects are, because these subjects within the world of wine are truly endless. But same thing, like ticketed events. So you come, you're sitting down with other people who have similar interests who you haven't met before, and you come in for this series of 5 Sundays in a row for these classes, and same deal. Like, so we're getting ready to kick off. I think we're going to call it Study Hall. So it will be on Sunday afternoons when we don't have, on the Sundays that we don't have Sunday school, and it's just sort of like an alumni get together. If that's, I don't know, we don't have the branding all the way locked down on it, but it's just sort of this idea that like if you've been to wine class and you love it, and like if we have an excuse for you to come out and see those people again and hang out together, like drink wine together, continue to like engage over wine. But here's the thing, like you might both get a glass of wine and you might talk about the wine for the first 2 minutes, and after that you're going to talk about everything else. And
because life.
Yeah, and it just harkens back really to this sort of, if you haven't gathered, this sort of underlying spirit of community and togetherness.
It's hard to do that behind a keyboard screen.
It is, yeah.
So it's nice to have a spot where it's open and very camaraderie centered and experiential, because they're still learning. They're getting to explore different avenues of these beverages, the food, whatever it may be for that event that they attend, and just have fun. Yeah. That's beautiful. Okay, so I know you've got so much going on. How can we as a community support you? What would you like to see the community be more involved with?
Oh gosh, I mean, on the whole, for us specifically, come to the dinners, right? Like buy tickets for the dinners, come to the wine classes, come out and have dinner, come experience the space. If you have a good time when you're here, tell your friends about it. Like, please, if you don't have a good time, tell me, right? But but that never so infrequently happens. We have the best staff in town. They're so spectacular. They take great care of everybody. If you're looking for an event venue, we can do events in the 15 to 20 range. We can have, depending on schedules and dates and all of those things, we've had groups, if they can utilize the downstairs and the upstairs while we're closed, groups of as many as 150. And we would love to talk about any of those sorts of things. If you have a special event, we don't do cookie cutter events. We don't have published pricing. We don't have published menus, because a baby shower is such a different style of event than a military promotion ceremony or hail and farewell, which is so different than a wedding, which is so different than a high school graduation, which is so different than a a ceremony of, or a remembrance ceremony of life, any in that sort of funeral adjacent space. And so if all of those events are so different, for us to say oh, here's our packages, pick which one you want, just isn't fair. And it means that our beverage teams and our culinary team get to have so much more fun, because they're crafting a menu for you, for your occasion. They get to account for season and what we can source locally at that particular point in time. They get to craft a menu around the demographics of the attendees and the theme and the occasion and all the things.
It's a much more personal approach all around.
And so that's kind of how you can help us specifically. I'd be remiss though if I didn't talk about how do you help the community at large, right? That, because that's just as important to me. If you come here and you love it, keep coming back. If you find other places that are small and locally owned and have good hearts and have, fulfill their obligation to you to provide a great experience or whatever it may be, support them too. My good friend Stacy, who is very involved in this whole sort of social enterprise space, she's the first person I heard say it. She said, every dollar that you every dollar that you spend is a vote for what you want to see in the world.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I've heard that one before, and that is absolutely 100%.
So if you value having the coolest, biggest burger chains here who are all moving in from out of state, support them, right? If that's what you want to see, if you support them, more of them will come, and it has turned out that they are. If what you love is a really great burger and you want to get it from a local place, there's a dozen of them around. I have to shout out Green Line Grill, because they're literally a block from here and they're my favorite.
And they're delicious.
If you want to see cool local burger spots, you have to support them. If you want to see cool breweries, if you want to see cool art galleries, if you want to see cool music venues, you have to spend dollars with them, right? Every dollar you spend is a vote for what you want to see in the world. And so vote accordingly.
There are a lot of options out there, so definitely just get out, check it out, check out the community, and just kind of feel your way through, find what you want. So that is 100%. I'm so grateful that you let us come and invade your space for a little bit.
Of course, absolutely.
Hopefully we'll get to do this again here soon, and we'll get to sit and be on a more casual setting.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Thanks so much, Jamie.
All right, that is Bringing Back the Block. Stay tuned for the next one.